Okay, guys, it's time for an emergency blog because I really want to discuss something that is of vital importance right now, and I don't know how long I can discuss it. And that would be acquiring Chris Pronger and/or any other expensive player it would take to acquire at the trade deadline. All right, let's talk about Chris Pronger. There are so many rumors out there that we're going to go ahead and get him, and it's coming from Eklund, which means we're not going to get him, so whatever. But Strickland says we've been rumored, I think, talking to him. If not, he's definitely implied it. And JD went on comment saying that, he didn't comment on whether or not we are looking toward Pronger. My problem here is that it's going to take a lot to get Chris Pronger. I mean, right now the starting price for Chris Pronger is going to have to equal out somehow to Phil Kessel and/or Blake Wheeler, because that's what I keep hearing Boston is offering, is one of those two guys for Chris Pronger's services. So if you want to try and outbid the Boston Bruins on getting Pronger, who, by the way, Boston just almost as stacked at prospects as we are. So if you want to get in a bidding war with the Boston Bruins over this, fine, go ahead, but you're going to sacrifice a lot more than it's worth. And furthermore, I mean, especially if you want to talk about value, if guys like Mike Comrie are going right now for a first rounder, guys like Schneider going around for a second and third, I mean, come on, it's going to be crazy expensive to go out and get Chris Pronger, and it just doesn't seem frugal or fruitful. When Edmonton traded him to Anaheim, which is the last trade in 06, the last time Pronger was involved in the deal, they sent Jeffrey Lupul, who was selected 7th overall in his draft class. They sent Ladislav Smid, I think, a guy who at the time had potential to be second rounder. I don't really know, or second liner. I don't really know what he's doing right now. They sent 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick. That was it. There was 2 first-rounders, a second-rounder, a first-line potential player, and a second-line potential player. So what does that equate to for the St. Louis Blues? That equates to something like, all right, we have Lupul, who was drafted 7th overall. We have, and Lupul was already kind of playing in the NHL at the time, so we need to find a player who can play in the first line in the NHL. So we're talking somebody like Perron, Oshie, or Berglund, somebody who can play on the first line in the NHL in a few years and has decent potential and is young. So already we're throwing in somebody like Perron, Berglund, or Oshie. That's what the starting price is going to be here. And then you're going to have to keep adding. You're going to need to throw in at least a first rounder and another rounder. You're probably going to have to throw in a prospect who you're not going to like to give up. Probably somebody we're looking like Cole or Sané, or Sana. I don't know how to say his name, but that guy, who's 3rd in scoring in the WHL. He's ahead of guys like Evander Kane, who are just a craze right now as far as who's going to be drafted. I know the guy's 20, so he should by all means be ripping it up and down in the WHL, but still, the guy has talent, and all these prospects in our system have all this talent. And the reason we have spent so much time in the cellar for so long is that we are building a dynasty of players, just an enormous amount of good players, so that we don't have to ever go out shopping for the next 10 years. Okay, the idea is that we build a core around the guys like Johnson, Backus, Oshie, Berglund, Perron, those guys. We build a core around them, which means you don't trade them. You don't trade them. I don't care who's coming back. Now, the arguments for Pronger are also starting to make me pretty angry. One of the arguments is that he belongs here. Nostalgia sucks. And this idea that Pronger is always a Blue, has always been a Blue. Do you think the guy really has fond memories of St. Louis? I mean, obviously he probably does. But think about this. In his tenure in St. Louis, which lasted, I don't even know how many years, probably 10, the furthest he got was the Western Conference Finals here. Where did he go in Edmonton? 1 year. 1 year it took in Edmonton. He got to the Stanley Cup Finals. And in Anaheim, we all know he won a Stanley Cup. So this idea that Pronger thinks of St. Louis as home, it comes from St. Louis fans. I don't think it comes from Chris Pronger himself, although his wife, I think, is from St. Louis, so that would help. And that's a hard thing to argue on my part, actually. So let's just move on. The guy is a minus on the season right now. And when you're talking, oh, Chris Pronger is an elite defenseman, I'm not seeing it when he's a minus on the year in a team like Anaheim. And I know that they've had some goaltending woes, but still, if you're going to be an elite defenseman, it doesn't matter what team you're on, you should be a plus, okay? And plus minus really, I mean, I know it's a lofty statistic at best, but still, it's relevant toward defensemen, I think. All right? And also, his cap hit is $6.25 million. So even if we sign this guy and we get him and we re-sign him in a couple of years and he's going to ask for the same kind of money, it's going to put us in cap hell. And the reason, and why would you want to do that when you got to re-sign Johnson, Perron, Oshie, Berglund? You got to re-sign those guys, and Johnson is a generational defenseman for sure. I mean, I remember when we were thinking about giving McDonald $1 million raise, which is what we ended up doing because it was the smart thing to do at the time. But when we were discussing giving McDonald $1 million raise, a lot of people were like, we can't afford that. If we do that right now, we're going to have trouble signing Perron and Johnson and those guys in the future. And it comes out that it's going to be pretty close once you factor in that we need a goalie and stuff like that. But you sign Chris Pronger at $6.25 million. It doesn't matter if you give up guys like David Perron in a trade for him. You're going to have to give them up when they become free agents anyway, because what are you going to do? You can't sign them. You can't keep it under the cap, which is probably going to go down either this year or next year, given the economy. And not only that, the Blues are in an internal budget. And this argument that we need Pronger to push for the playoffs. We're pushing for the playoffs already. We are, in the last 20 games for all NHL teams, we are the second best team. I think New Jersey's better than us. But so why do you need Pronger? We have a team that in 40 games would be the number 2 team in the league, while in 20 games, so multiply that by 2, which is half a season. So why do you need Pronger to bolster this already number 2 lineup? Well, as soon as you trade somebody like Perron, Berglund, or Oshie, you're going to feel a little bit more scared because all of a sudden, hey, JD's not keeping up to his word that he's not going to trade us. So you can't bring in Pronger. And I know that locker room chemistry is a weird thing to argue, and I don't really like arguing it, but it's got to be legit. And you don't need him for a playoff push. We are making a playoff push without him. The only reason we aren't in the playoff picture already is because Manny Legacy sucked like crazy this year, okay? Not because our defense was bad, not because our defense needs him, but because we just had bad goaltending at the beginning of the year. Chris Mason is holding solid for us right now. I don't think that's a long-term solution, but it's a solution to the rest of the year. And if you think adding Chris Pronger is going to push us into the Stanley Cup, you're crazy. Watch more hockey. There are guys out there who are way better than us. I was watching a New Jersey game the other day. We get smoked by them. Detroit, they are... Well, we usually have Detroit's number, actually, but San Jose, we wouldn't win in a series against them. Heck, let's look at the season series against the Los Angeles Kings, who are a fringe team who might not get in. So, if you think Chris Pronger is going to bolster us to over the top to a playoff spot, or to a Stanley Cup, we're barely in a playoff spot. So this argument doesn't hold any water. So why you want to trade and acquire Pronger by trading future assets who will be on this club in a few years making less money? I mean, you can afford one Chris Pronger, or you can afford like 7 TJ Oshies or Patrick Berglunds or Alex Petrangelos or David Perrons or whoever name you. So why you want to trade Chris Pronger for Chris Pronger, I don't understand. And it's a shame he had to leave 5 years ago, however long it was. Really is, and it's a shame we didn't get a better return for him. But if we trade for him right now, we are going to regret it for the next 3 to 5 years because we have spent so much time down here in the bottom of the league that if we go ahead and waste guys like Alex Petrangelo and David Perron, or just first-round picks in general, by acquiring Chris Pronger, who makes a cap hit of 6.25, who's going to put us in cap hell, who's going to push out a defenseman who needs to be in the lineup. I mean, think about it. Next year, who are you going to take out of this lineup? So if we sign Chris Pronger to a $6.25 million contract, and we stay in our little internal cap space that JD and Checkets always remind us about, where are we coming up with some money for a goaltender? And if you can move Jay McKee, fine, go ahead and bring in Chris Pronger. But you can't move Jay McKee, and there's no way you're going to. And even if we buy out his contract, we're still going to end up paying $2 million of it for 2 years, I think, if I'm doing that right. acquiring Chris Pronger. I think it's a bad idea. If you disagree with me, which you probably do, go ahead and comment down there. All right, I got to go. I'll see you guys later.